What if I told you that the final exam you just poured your heart into wasn't graded by a professor, but by an algorithm? Well, that's not science fiction anymore. It's actually happening right now. Today, we're going to dig into the rise of AI in the classroom, the software that's grading papers, scoring tests, and deciding who makes the cut. The big question is it really ready for the job?
Let's just put it out there plain and simple. Could an AI decide your grade? For a whole bunch of students, this isn't some hypothetical question they debate in class. Nope, it's their reality. And that forces us to ask some really tough questions about fairness, about accuracy, and honestly, about what the future of learning is even going to look like.
And you better believe regulators are starting to pay attention. The European Union's Big AI Act, it doesn't pull any punches. It officially classifies these grading systems as high risk. Now, why that specific term? Well, because a single decision made by an algorithm could literally determine whether you get into college or land your next job. The stakes for you as an individual could not be higher.
Okay, so we've got a law on the books that says these AI graders are a big deal. They're high risk and have to be handled with extreme care. But here's the real kicker. Is anyone who's actually using this tech ready to follow the law? This brings us to what researchers are now calling the high-risk gap.
So a recent 2025 study decided to check this out. Researchers surveyed 100 universities in Italy to see just how prepared they are. And what they found, well, it's pretty alarming. Turns out only 13% of these schools had any kind of formal public policy for how they use AI. Yeah, you heard that right, just 13%.
And if you do the math on that, it means the huge majority, a whopping 87%, had no official guidelines whatsoever. Just think about that. Nearly 9 out of every 10 universities were basically operating in a total policy vacuum when it comes to this incredibly high-stakes technology.
And this huge disconnect. That's what experts are calling the governance gap. On one side, you have this powerful law with super strict requirements. And on the other, you have schools that are almost completely unprepared to meet them. Oh, and here's the best part. The deadline for them to get everything in order is August 2026. The clock isn't just ticking, it's practically screaming. So, to figure out just how deep this gap really is, the researchers decided to turn the tables. They basically created a report card to grade the very institutions that were so eager to have AI do the grading. Pretty clever, right? Let's see how they did. This team, led by Manganello, they didn't mess around. They came up with this super detailed 27-point checklist. You can think of it like a really rigorous inspection. They went through the public AI policies from those 13 early adopter universities to see if they actually held up to the core principles of what makes an AI trustworthy. And this whole checklist was built around these 7 key ideas, the absolute gold standard for trustworthy AI. This isn't just about, does the tech work? It's way deeper. It's about things like human oversight. Is there a person who can step in and correct a mistake? Or what about fairness? Does the AI have some hidden bias that might put certain students at a disadvantage? This is the tough standard they were measuring against.
And what did they find? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. They found this huge contrast between what universities said they cared about and what their policies could actually prove with concrete rules. This is really the heart of the problem, the massive gap between promises and proof.
The results were, to put it mildly, all over the place. The highest scoring university only got a 60 out of 100. That's barely a passing grade. The average score was a dismal 33. And of course, a university with no policy got a big fat 0. The researchers called this substantial governance heterogeneity, which is just a very polite academic way of saying it's a total mess. And this is where you see the real pattern emerge. The universities were fantastic at writing what the study calls aspirational statements. Beautiful flowery language about ethics and making the world a better place. But when it came down to the operational proof, the actual hard rules about how to test for bias, how a student can appeal a grade from an AI, or how to make sure the tech is even working right, the policies were almost totally silent. Okay, look at this chart. Seriously, it tells you everything you need to know in one picture. See that score for societal well-being? Over 50. That's all the nice-sounding promises. But then look way down at the bottom, technical robustness and safety. The actual nuts and bolts of making sure the AI is safe and reliable is struggling to even hit 20. That's not a gap, my friends. That's a chasm. And frankly, it's a dangerous one. So the problem is clear. It's huge. But the good news is, the study doesn't just drop this bomb and walk away.
It also gives us a clear 3-step plan for how we can start closing this governance gap and make AI in our schools safer and more accountable for everyone involved.
So here's the game plan they propose. First, governments need to step up and provide clear, specific rules just for education, turning that broad EU law into something practical. Second, universities need help. We're talking training and resources to build the tech skills they're clearly missing. And third, and this is a big one, AI governance has to become a normal part of how we check university quality, just like anything else. It can't be an optional extra anymore.
And this all leaves us with one final nagging thought. We've seen that writing a law is one thing, but making sure people actually follow it is a whole different ballgame. The rules for high-risk AI in our schools are being written as we speak. So the question we all have to ask is, when the AI is grading the students, who is grading the AI?